The fact that if you're spiritual, then you should kind of turn away from material world is actually the opposite. I look at it the way that, like, the material aspect is more like the foundation, right?
Life experience is just as important as the inner experience. Like, you cannot come out of the training and expect that now you know everything.
Information coupled with the clarity and insight that really increases manifold the chances of your business to be successful. When it comes to business, it's also the mind, right? How organized it is, how it works with the information that you have, and also kind of like gives you a bulb, like, okay, I'm missing this information. I need to gather that information in order to make the best decision given the situation. To keep up all the practices, of course, as much as you can. That really should give you a sense of clarity and insight of a certain level, right? So that's definitely the main point. The second point is the material. In the material aspects, of course, you cannot just be the desire of like, okay, Sadhguru, like prepare me now. I'm going with Sadhguru's grace, which is definitely an aspect. But you also really...
The only thing that's in your hands is effort. So put your 100% into your effort, what happens, happens. So don't leave proportions of your energy and your capability to luck, God, fate, all these things. That's not your business. If there is such a thing, it will act. Your business is only effort, isn't it? Just do that. Effort has to be incisive in the sense, it should be focused, calibrated. Simply if you make effort, it's foolish effort, isn't it? Just labor is not going to get you somewhere. The right kind of action, the right timing, right place, all this is important, isn't it?
Namaskaram and welcome back to Twisted Reality, the podcast where we decode ancient wisdom for modern life. Today we have a very special guest who is a classical Hatha Yoga teacher trained in Sadhguru Gurukulam. But his path isn't what many people expect. While he dedicated 2 years to teaching full-time, he's now running his family business, and by all accounts his activity is only increasing, not going down. He's found that his spiritual practice has empowered him to act more in the world, not less. Welcome, Nicola.
Namaskaram, Stefan. Thank you for the opportunity.
Such a pleasure to have you here. And to start, I would like you to introduce yourself a little bit more to our audience. Share a bit about yourself, what you're doing right now, where you are, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So my name is Nicola. I'm from Italy, from the south, in a city called Naples. And that's where I was born and where I grew up. I am in a family of 4. I have a sister. And so I studied elementary school, secondary school in Naples. Then I stayed there for the high school. But then at 18, I decided to actually move to London. My sister was already living there at the time. I was 17, the first time I actually visited London. I visited her, she was living there, and I don't know, I was awestruck. I was awestruck by the freedom, how international it was. Yeah, when I was 17, I came back home. That was the last year of high school. And I decided, okay, next year, 18, I will move to London. So I learned English. I was like watching just English movies. It was funny because the only subject that I was actually failing at school was English until 17. Which I just didn't see the point of learning the language at that age, because in Italy, anyways, everything is in Italian. Even the movies, there's no like it's all dubbed in Italian. So, yeah, it was fun enough. But then 17, I went to London. I realized the importance of learning a language. So went back home and, yeah, decided to learn the language by myself, basically. And then 18, I went to London. I stayed there for a couple of months, did like an intensive course to just improve the English. And then I did the test to get into university. It was, yeah, I passed it. And then that's it. It was 3 years of university of economics. I studied economics. It was a bit of a struggle with my family because they would have wanted me to stay in Naples. My father is a doctor. He's a radiologist. And his father was also a doctor. He was a surgeon. So because, my family is quite traditional, especially my father's side, then the idea was, or the assumption was that I would also become a doctor, stay in Naples, study here, take care of the family business, and that's it. But I was just so drawn to London. I just wanted to be there. I just wanted to, I don't know, be open to so many more opportunities, of course, that London brings, especially at their age. So after a little bit of struggle, then I convinced my father mainly. And then I moved to London. I went to uni. There was uni time, or lots of social life, lots of going out, and was meeting people from all over the world. I had like different groups of friends from everywhere, different backgrounds, different everything. And after uni, then I decided to work for a company. It was actually the same company as my sister was working at. It was a private jet company. So I was selling literally private jet hours, like flying hours to fly on private jets. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was. I know it's a bit uncommon, but yeah, it's just I was working for the South European market. So it was Italy, Greece, Turkey, and I was doing that for 4 years. And then I always had this urge, this desire to have my own business. So because I studied economics, so it was all about the teaching is about finding the gap in the market and become an entrepreneur. Ideally, that's the kind of like path you kind of set yourself into. After economics, after living in London, meeting so many people, so many entrepreneurs. So the idea was always there in my mind. And then there was an opportunity of doing like a business that was about importing and distributing sweet products, desserts, ingredients, ice creams, like anything sweet from Italy. Yeah. And then importing it in London and distributing it in London, especially like special desserts from south of Italy, like cannolo, maybe something that has been popular. Maybe you heard about it, or yeah, different pastries, all these things, which I did. It took me some time, so I went back to Naples. I stayed for 3 months in a laboratory, like pastry laboratory, one of the most famous in the city, to kind of like learn how the business was handled. And then I went back to London, and it took me a few months to find the right place. Luckily, I had a good friend of mine that was like helping me out for everything. I was kind of working for the business. So yeah, took me some time to set it up. And then we started with the business. We had like a big warehouse just on the outside of London, like our own van. And we went on with the marketing, tried to do it, as high quality as possible, like brochures, flyers were going door to door to all the restaurants in London. There's so many Italian restaurants. So, and not just restaurants, it was also like delicatesse, delis, like cafeterias, hotels, supermarket chains, whatever. So yeah, we just really went full on I had the business for 2 years. We went up to have over 100 customers. So over 100 restaurants, bars, and everything. But I didn't consider too much the economics. Maybe economics-wise, I didn't plan it in the right way. So even though like we were having a lot of success, we had a lot of customers, we started to have a decent turnover, even in terms of like quantity, orders and everything. The economics of it, because it was like a B2B business. So on that, the margins are very low. And of course, London is super, hyper, hyper expensive, right? So then, yeah, then after 2 years, I came to a point where it was about or putting more money into the business and then keep going. Or it was at the time where if I had closed the business, then I would have been able to recover a lot of the investment made, initial investment. And that was it. So yeah, it was time. I just took 2-3 days completely alone. Because even the silence started then. Like I was like, okay, I need to like decide, and took a couple of days and I decided to close it down. It was a big turning point for me because then, I mean, apart from the fact that I was really, when you have your own business, like your own, and you spend so much time and so much effort, so you kind of really identify with the business. You really, or at least at the time, I really, I don't know, I put my heart into it, everything. So to have the strength of kind of like, okay, that's enough. It was very difficult for me, very difficult. And that led me to a phase of my life where I kind of stopped and I said, okay, why has this happened? Why didn't I have the clarity? Why didn't I have the capability? Why didn't I have the insight? Why I didn't have the perception, the intuition to know all this? Because I would have known it from even before, I would have done a proper research. I could have just been much more insightful. And I was just okay. Like I don't want to work now. I don't want to do anything. I just really want to, I mean, inside yours, I want to become more conscious. Of course, that wasn't the case because I didn't know anything about consciousness. So there wasn't the wording within me. The wording was more, I want to become more capable, more clear, and there was a strong desire. First time in my life that I was like, okay, like, I want to be different. I want to be, you know, all these things. And I just didn't know how, right? Because you're told that, okay, you go to school, you go to the best school, you learn the skills,
Yeah.
right? Nobody teaches you how to be more insightful, how to be more perceptive. I mean, you just don't know, right? You just,
Yes, yes. Our grandmas sometimes give us some like intuitive tips if they are capable of listening to their heart and guiding through that intuitive side. I do sometimes get that feeling that my mom was always intuitive, but she suppressed it, like I such a beautiful experience that you had this like you had a desire to create something that is your own, but then you didn't really had the guidance, you didn't really had the insight into how to make this work, right? You just kind of started it without knowing what actually goes into it, which could be lack of like like a mentoring process could be in there that was lacking, but also the clarity that you said, like actually putting in time to research before starting. So I can relate to that a lot. Even what you shared in the beginning of you coming from a country that is at that time was Italy, and you were not exposed to international people, and then suddenly you find yourself in this city where everybody is an entrepreneur, so you also want to become an entrepreneur. There's also some kind of pressure that we feel that I want to be my own person. You left your family, that you also have that pressure from the family that they're expecting you to become successful, to become someone. I can relate to that as well, and I think a lot of people can. And there's also like on this now, I mean, you are where was the point when spirituality, like you mentioned silence, that you had to go into silence to make the right decision? Where was that point? Was there any specific point where that spiritual part really entered you or really entered your life?
I would say just a desire of being more insightful, more clear, more conscious came there. So as soon as the desire came, then, everything else just unfolded. Because the desire was not there. The desire is like, okay, I'm fine, I went to the good uni,
Hmm.
there was no desire to really tap into anything, no spiritually, or not even just for like personal development or improvement or anything like this, like to look for something alternative, something more holistic, something more complete. And to add to the point, actually, that you were saying, it's also not only just coming from Italy, going to London and everything, but it's also about the concept that we had, like I grew up with, at least, in Italy, that to be happy, then, you need to be successful, make money, and, do all the other things, right? That it is so ingrained in your mind since you're young. So even though you might have like, personally, you might have different tendencies, you might be actually drawn to other things, which probably was my case, more subtle things, more like different activities, even in the world, or like helping people or whatever it is. But even if you have this, then you are kind of pushed subtly, towards these other things, right? To have this, you need to have that. And I could
Mm.
see, like, when I just look at it clearly, it was very deeply ingrained in my mind that, in order to be happy, I had to have like a successful business. So then, it was just a natural path for me to just go into one thing and the other. And also another thing that looking at it now, it was okay, you do this kind of business, but in my mind, there was no focus at all onto like, okay, what is a business? Like a business is like you want to impact people positively. There's the idea of how the business should be.
Right, yeah. And in how we are trained is like a business is there to make money.
Exactly.
So
And
we
then to
don't
be
think
happy.
about the customer. We don't think about how we are serving people. We're just thinking about what we are getting.
Exactly. So that was completely missing in my analysis, not just even the economics of it. Just also like, okay, I'm selling pastries. Okay, it's nice. But, it's something I wouldn't do now, for instance, like you can, I mean, nothing wrong with selling pastries and cakes and all these
You
things.
could
They were
you could you could
delicious.
energize
They were
them.
delicious.
You can put, you can make it very pure and authentic.
More pranic, yeah, of course. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is that there wasn't even the thought, like, the analysis. It wasn't there completely of like, bringing well-being and, really trying to impact other people positively, because
Mm.
I mean, after all the experiences I had, actually what makes you happy in terms of activity, at least for me, from my own experience now, is clearly like to have a positive impact on other people. It's not about the money. And the money, if you do it
Mm.
properly, if you do it with insight, if you do it with a certain clarity and certain like sharpness of mind, then the results will come, and also the economic will come.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hear that from you. When we were on the call, you mentioned to me that you felt that there is a certain resistance that we have when we move from the material path, which is like the traditional path of going to school, college, and what you mentioned, having a family, buying a house, having children. And then when we shift to the spiritual path, we kind of stop wanting the materials things, but then we also build a resistance towards it. And we kind of say no to receiving. Like we say no to earning. At least in my surroundings, I see a lot of people who are into spirituality and they struggle with receiving. They struggle with, they don't want to pay for something that is spiritual. They expect spirituality to be free.
Yeah, there's a big misconception, I think, about what spirituality is. I mean, once you really experience what this is, and then you have more clarity and insight, or at least in my experience, is that, and even talking to other teachers now, I mean, just taking a leap forward, other teachers and people in general, you see that, especially then people that, aren't living in the West, in Europe especially, I mean, having a strong survival, so having a comfortable material situation around you that is as as organized and as stable and as strong as possible, then really allows you to do so many more things, right? And I see a lot of other teachers now, or a lot of people that I know that maybe would love to do other things to impact other people positively, to have such a bigger positive impact on the society, but they cannot do it. They're not able to do it because they don't have like a stable enough financial situation, or they don't have that aspect covered, right? So I find it's a huge misconception that then once you start working on yourself and maybe starting to give importance to other dimensions of life, then that the material aspect is not important anymore. I feel, especially if you want to be active in the world, and especially if you want to be active in the world in the West, I actually think is not at all like this. In my cases, I kind of stepped away from the material for some time because it was because I wanted to immerse myself into these dimensions. I wanted to do the whole path, right? To pick myself up and to become more conscious. And of course, that because I had never done it before, I didn't have any background. Then it took me more time. And so I had to kind of steer away a little bit from it. And because then I wanted to become what I wanted to become. And, you know, in terms of like what we're talking about, clarity, perception, and everything. And so I did that at the beginning. But then afterwards, and especially now, you know, I have my own path, I have my own practices, which allow me to function at a certain level outside and inside to have a different experience of life, which was exactly the desire that I had at that point. But I'm able completely to manage and improve the material aspects of myself and my family, the person close to me.
That's very beautiful and inspiring as well, because like you mentioned, so you had to take a leap in that sense away from the material world, which is the 5-6 months that you went to the ashram to do the teacher's training, right?
It was a bit longer than that. So it was when I closed the company, it was 2014.
Mhm.
I closed the company. I decided, okay, I do not want to work part-time or full-time. Well, I don't want to work full-time anymore. Okay, because I want to get there. I want to improve myself. I want to find a way to get there. So actually from there it started. So I took some months away to detach from everything. Then I had I couldn't not work at all. Okay. So there was one of our clients that really wanted me to start a B2B for him. He didn't have, always in food, always in like B2B industry. So I said, okay, I come back to you. They was still in London. I come back to you, but only part-time. Only if I work like 2-3 days a week. Because the rest of the time, I still, you know, I still don't know. I need to have my time for myself. So there was a
What were you
time
doing in that time? Like when you say I took time for myself, what were you doing at that time for yourself?
searching. Searching on the web how to improve the food. Is it the food that I'm eating that is not right? Why am I eating this kind of food? What it is? Of course, the first step was with the food because the time you don't know anything else. Okay, list the food. Then um, I don't know, just aspects of life, like just articles of how to the posture, improve your posture to function better. It's just all these
When
things.
was the point when yoga and Sadhguru came? Like,
So that was
or
after 1 year.
how?
It was after 1 year. After 1 year of searching, I was ready for the guru. And then, you know, as they say, it's not you that find the guru, it's the guru that finds you when you're ready, right? Or something like this. I don't know exactly what the saying is, but yeah, that's exactly how it happened. The desire was there. I was just searching, but you know, if you search on the web, you're not very clear. You don't have a personal experience. You don't have the kind of sensibility within you to know what's what. So I was just stumbling around everything. I was just looking everywhere, and even did some yoga classes with an Indian friend of mine. We took me to some yoga classes that I could find some benefits body wise. I could see there was something there, which opened up even more, maybe, or even brought down my resistances more to all this like spirituality, because, you know, of course there was many resistances because like the concept of guru, the concept of like what yoga is, especially from my background, economics, and
Yeah.
it's kind of like, so I was like, if you were talking about spirituality, back then, I would just turn away, or I would see someone with a long beard, I would just be, oh my God, it's this kind of like stuff. It's how it is. But because of the desire was strong, because I was trying everything, even yoga, it kind of worked in a
Mhm.
way. Then kind of the resistances were down. So I was just open. It was a time for me. And then Sadhguru came. Like I was just looking from the web. There was an article on Google talking about what Tantra is, or what mantra, whatever. And then I just read the article. Okay, this is something, this is like someone that's really telling you something in such a clear way, in such a genuine way that it just even the words, everything, how it was said, and that it just really struck me. Then this other Indian friend of mine, I had a lot of Indian friends in London at the time. He was a follower of Isha. Like he wasn't practicing or anything, but he knew Sadhguru. He was a follower, so he kind of knew it already. So I do the reference as well to kind of like you. And yeah, that was it. There was something within me that was really drawn to what was being offered there. So I even
And then
took
from
more.
that point to the decision to go to India and do the teachers training made you, I mean, I understand from the perspective of people who are listening to this, they might already know Sadhguru, they might already be aware of the offerings that he has. And once you get a glimpse of it, you kind of want to see it all, you want to experience what it truly means and you want to see the origin of it, right? Like it's not, it feels like not enough to stay at the screen and watch a video. You kind of want to experience what it actually is. So I understand that desire, but the desire to go to India and do a teacher training is like a completely different thing. So yeah, I think that would be interesting to hear how that desire evolved.
It was very gradual for me, very gradual. And of course, in the West, or at least in my experience, it was that a lot of people around the web or a lot of businesses or whatever it is, sometimes they just don't really care about you, so you kind of always have, as even more with the spirituality, like a guru, something completely new. Then I was very skeptical. I mean, there was something within me that it was completely clear that there's something huge behind this, beyond this, but and behind this, but still I was very skeptical. Still, in my mind was like in so many questions. So for me, it was very gradual. So I decided to do, okay, I'm gonna watch all these videos. I'm gonna read all these books because I had the free time and I was searching. And okay, it seems that I found the right source for me to develop and evolve. But yeah, it took me a year, and then after 1 year of reading and everything, I mean, the guy was just there's no one thing that is not logical, right? I mean, it just makes so much sense. He covered all the aspects on all the aspects. So I said, okay, well, I'll do whatever is offering the inner engineering as a first step. So let's do inner engineering. And luckily enough, there was one in London where I was living. So I said, okay, let's do it. And I did it. It was a 4 day. It was in presence at the time. Not in the presence of him. It was like a small gathering of 60 people. I was in Shanga doing it, but still fine. Whatever the first opportunity to do it. So yeah, I did the 4 days. It was very pleasant, very nice. The experience, but then I started to do the practice at home, and it wasn't really working for me. It was the time the full inner engineering, so they would teach you also the full Upa Yoga session, right, along with the Shambhavi. So, I was like, okay, like the prescription, you do it, the mandala, like I was doing it. I was doing the Upa Yoga, I was doing once a day, but Upa Yoga, I was feeling okay, like I was really into sports, actually. I have like a bit of a sporting background. Never really did it professionally, but I was doing a lot of like swimming, playing football, kickboxing, going to the gym. I was trying to, yeah, I was always been active, like physically, on that side. So Upa Yoga, you know, This is like, I don't understand, like, this is very basic. I don't know, it's not interesting, it's a bit boring. I wasn't understanding at all what it was doing to me energetically or whatever. So I was like, no, I don't like it. And the Shambhavi, I don't know, it didn't really work. I was like, okay, I have to be there, like sitting with the eyes closed for some time. So I did it for a few weeks, then I dropped it.
I had the same experience.
You got the same thing, yeah, because
Yeah, didn't work. It just didn't work. I mean, I was like, I am already happy. I already have, like, I'm not getting anything from doing this practice. I felt like that. So I didn't really know why should I keep doing this. So yeah, I did that. So the same thing happened to me.
and it's weird enough because you hear so many experiences, right? Like everybody's like having time of their life. Shambhavi is the best. I don't know. So it's like, okay, maybe something wrong within me, because it's like, okay, I'm doing everything, the way it's been told. So I kind of put it aside, and it was also kind of a turning point because at the time I moved back to Italy. I turned 30. I moved back to Italy. Yeah, I just turned back to Italy. I didn't practice. I still was watching his videos. I was still very drawn to him, very, very drawn. Then I started to help my father for his, because my father kind of wanted me to go back, and my priority kind of shifted as well, because then I was like giving a lot more priority and importance to other things like the quality of life. In Italy, it's like south of Italy. Just the possibility to go to the sea, throughout the year, the possibility to go to a farmer and buy, things that you don't really get in London.
And it's also slow, more slow, right? Like you take your time, you eat with your family, or you don't, like, it's the more you go into these, the more developed the countries are, the more business success oriented they are, the more distracted you are, like people watching TV while eating, or people just eating on the go. They're so busy. So I feel that the south of Italy offered you that, to like a good support in terms of the environment for growth.
Absolutely, because the priority had changed. It has shifted completely. So then it was perfect, right? Because you want to be closer to nature. Because you started to kind of feel where where the well-being really comes from. And of course, I mean, depends on each one, each person's situation, which is even in London, you could have like, you could kind of move a bit further away and be more in nature. It's not necessarily that, but it is. It was for me at least. At least for my personal situation, going back to Italy would have allowed me to be closer to nature, closer to the sea, which I grew up with. So it was a big factor for me. Able to get like different kind of food, more like fresh food, more accessible at least. And also my father was kind of like wanting me to go back. So because of also to start helping on the family side, which I wasn't doing, of course, when I was in London. So then I moved back. I moved back for a few months. I wasn't practicing Shambhavi, and then I went to Cuba for a few months on a holiday for the winter. I had the opportunity to do that. I had the free time. I wasn't working. I mean, I was helping my father, but it was mainly in the summer. So then I brought all the books of Sadhguru with me. I had even more free time. I don't know, maybe the energy of the island, maybe I don't know what it was, the energy of the people, the kind of lifestyle. I don't know what it was. But after some times I was there, then I said, okay, let me try Shambhavi again. I did Shambhavi again, and there was like an explosion of things. And since then, I never stopped. This was about, so I was initiated into Shambhavi in 2016, and I started again Shambhavi with this new experience in 2017 in the winter. So it was about maybe a year.
Hmm.
And since then, never stopped. And since then, my path was just, okay, I need to keep delving into this because there is something there even more, like I'm not aware of it at all.
What do you think made the difference? If there is any insight that you had, I'm curious to hear, because there might be some people who still have that feeling that, is this really working or not? am I doing it right or wrong? Maybe something is wrong with me. Like, I had these thoughts and you also had these thoughts. What would you say was different when you did it in in Cuba? I mean, the place obviously was not the only thing.
Yeah, but then I came to realize that okay, if like Sadhguru is teaching you something and it's not working, it's because you're probably doing something that is not right, right? So at the time, I also questioned myself. I was like, why I was doing it and I was not really getting the experience, and now why I'm doing it now, you know? So I mean, I'm not 100% sure exactly why, because there's so many aspects there, right? That maybe I'm not even aware of. But certain things are for sure there because I can see it in my experience. I was going to the gym at the time when I learned Shambhavi. I was doing weights and I had rigidity in the body. I had it. I knew because then when I went to Cuba, I stopped it for 3 months when I was there, and I was a lot more flexible, a lot more at ease body wise. And I think that physically at least has definitely played a huge difference.
And your mind also was more at ease, right? Because in London, before that, you were also like stimulated by the business, or at least maybe not the business, but by the environment and by the collective consciousness, the people around.
Maybe it was the atmosphere, not just the activity or the thoughts in my mind. It was maybe the atmosphere wasn't as supportive, especially at the beginning, maybe, because also Sadhguru says it's like a seed that you kind of need to nurture it, right? So I guess especially in the mandala, because it's something completely new in your system, right? You're not used to Shambhavi at all. You're not used to this kind of like energy. So I would say, especially in the beginning, maybe the atmosphere in terms of like the energy of the space. So in London, I was living in a flat share with other people. Maybe there wasn't that much care into the, into the place where you were living. It was a bit more superficial, maybe it wasn't as warm. In terms of care, more than like, in terms of like the fast pace or anything else,
Yeah,
which
and
was
then
completely
when you did
opposite
it
in
in
Cuba.
yeah, and when you did it in Cuba, so the first time you did it, there was a certain inner experience that you had, or was it a gradual, like you did it, you still didn't experience anything?
It was an inner explosion. It was like, I was so much more sensitive, right? I would just feel so much more. Even everything was becoming much more conscious. My breathing, my heartbeat. It was just kind of like they just defined the five, the sensorial whatever. Everything was just so enhanced. So it was like okay, like I was kind of like on a drug, but completely conscious. And it was just from the first day I did it, and it maintained. And then I said, okay, I'm gonna do it twice a day. Because if it's like it happens once a day, then twice a day. So yeah, and the experience of life would just be much more mm, functioning, like and at a much slower pace. So I could just even think before responding to situation. I don't know. It was kind of like being superhuman, which we shouldn't say in Isha, right? It was like I would say, you're extraordinary, you're even more ordinary, but your experience changes completely, completely. And yeah, I don't know. It's definitely the body. Definitely the body wasn't, especially for Shamba, because Shamba is a very subtle practice. Then after I learned all the other practices, I kind of noticed that Shamba is very different from other practices, which the Hatha yoga is much more immediate because it's directly for the body. Like you just immediately notice it a lot more. But Shamba is a lot more subtle. And I started with Shamba. I didn't have anyone guiding me. Okay, maybe you should do Hatha yoga first, or whatever not. So as I had this rigid body, then is a very subtle practice, which is almost like gentle as a flower. And then I come from the West and I'm living in the West and I live in a place in London where there's not really that much care in the environment. The food is not supportive. There's no community as such of Isha that can maybe support you or anything. So there's no support anywhere. It's something completely new. My body wasn't prepared. Didn't have any background at all. The space wasn't energized. I don't know. I think, at least in my experience, all these factors definitely impacted it. Um, but then again, maybe it's more things, more subtle that I'm not even aware of.
Yeah, some things we don't know, and some things are better not to try to know without actually, like, to come up with some kind of conclusions that we are not really sure about. Some things, who knows, they might be revealed to you one day, but for now, things you once it hit you, you were like, okay, this is something that I want to commit to. You started doing it twice a day, and then you came back home to Italy, and
you man,
how did your family react when you came back with that new sense of perception? Or you said you started to feel different, sense life differently, be less reactive, more proactive. How was it like integrating that back into when you were back home?
it was the same approach, very gradual, because it was such a huge change in such a short time that I wasn't even clear enough on how to behave with the people and the activity of the day, how to structure even the day. So it was very gradual. I just decided, okay, I take more time for myself. The business, my family, at the time I was helping my father with business, because my father has a business which is it's production of wheat. He has two like farms, even deeper south. So it's more like the harvesting and kind of like I mean, of course, it's like people doing it for you, but then you kind of need to manage it, right? You passively manage it, but it is our admin and everything, and you have to be there, of course, to make sure everything goes accordingly. I mean, which is the family business from like 4 generations back. So because that required more time in the summer, and this was winter time, then I had much more free time. Then my mother's business, I took it up like just a few years ago. So a few years after that time. So I had a lot of free time, was stepping back a little bit from social, just to kind of like settle myself a little bit, to know how to behave, what to do, how to integrate myself with the society in the best possible way that will be working for my own experience without compromising it too much, and with others, because I could see I could not speak to others about this because then they wouldn't understand. So I was kind of getting that wisdom gradually, how to approach certain situations, how to deal with people, how to structure my own lifestyle, my own life, my own daily schedule. It's very gradual. But I had clear that I wanted to go on with the path. So what's the next step? What's the next step? I was still like really following Sadhguru, like all these books, videos again. And I was like, okay, what's the next step? And there was the Baba Spandana the year after. And so it was very gradual. And Baba Spandana was
In Italy?
something. No, Baba Spandana was in France.
Okay, so you did the advanced programs in Europe,
Yes,
and
yes.
then the Hatha Yoga?
It was Baba Spandana in France, and then Shunya in Holland the following year. And then the following year also, I wanted to go to the ashram at some point, right? I really wanted to experience the center and everything. So I wanted to go, but I didn't know what for. And then after I've done Shambhavi, I've been initiating into Shambhavi, Shunya, I was like, okay, Hatha Yoga. Because I didn't have any guidance at the time. There was no community, even Isha community in Italy or anything like that. So I was just looking at the web and, just getting idea, okay, what's the next step? So there was a program, a 21-day program, Hatha Yoga program in the ashram. I was like, okay, this is nice. I'll be able to stay in the ashram for, longer time and experience the ashram, and then also learn all the Hatha Yoga practices. So that's exactly how it happened. And the Hatha Yoga for me was from the beginning. It was like, catching fire like gasoline. It was like, this has been designed for me from the first day. It was very immediate. Yeah, it's just slowly I learned all the Hatha Yoga, Hatha Yoga practices that then we also teach. The 6 main core Hatha Yoga practices. And when I finished the 21-day, I knew, okay, I wanted to delve more into it. I want to know more about this because it is such powerful tools. If people in my country, in my city would learn this, then kind of like the disease will go down, the well-being of the whole place would just be on a completely different level. People will come out of so many ailments, just the whole atmosphere of the city will completely change. So I said, okay, I not only want to delve into it more, to know more, because of course on the 21 days, not as deep, right? But also this could just have like an explosive impact on like the atmosphere in my city. So okay, next step, teacher training, right? And that's it. I decided I knew. I went back home. I did all the practices. I was really working on myself, like on the energy practicing, really to prepare myself for the teacher training, because anyone was telling me, oh, it's very intense. Just try to prepare yourself as much as you can because it's very, very intense. And okay, but like I'm prepared physically, I'm prepared mentally, I was, it's whatever. I'll be able to do it easily. And so I was preparing, and I did the teacher training the following year, and it's been the most challenging thing I've done in my life.
Physically or overall, like physically, mentally, everything?
Everything. Physically, it was actually the part which was the easiest for me because of the sport background, because I was doing all the practices anyways beforehand. So on that sense, I really actually went really prepared. But everything else, it was like you were put in like in a cooking pressure, like in a cooking pot, like, and the pressure would just go up and up and up and up and up during the training. And you just like how to handle this, so many things, so many activities. The schedule is just crazy during the day. It's just insane. I mean, in the West, we're not used to the kind of level of intensity, like not even in our wildest dreams. So I mean,
During the training, was there any particular challenge? So you said the body was not the issue for you. That was really smooth. How about either the emotional part of like anything that was just a struggle through the training, or was it very smooth for you? Other than the schedule and the intensity and just the dealing with like being in a country that you don't know. I mean, you visited India once before when you did the 21-day program, but this is like 5 months of committed. It's very, very different. So yeah, if there, I would like to hear if you did face any challenges.
Absolutely, it was mainly emotional for me. It was like a bit of a roller coaster. Like yes, body was there, stable platform, but then mentally and emotionally, it was like a roller coaster. Like one day I would feel like flying, and the other day I would feel like restless, like something is going on. There's no right. Kind of like paranoia. I don't know. Everything was just so fast forward, and mentally and emotionally, I don't know whether I was not prepared, or whether it's designed for that, to break so many limitations. So it was more emotional. I was like, and then of course, like you have to perform as well because right, you have so many practice to do. You have to become a teacher. So of course you have exams. You have to study. You have to do volunteering. So to be able to do all this, and it's kind of like sometimes it was overwhelming. Like you kind of like you go back home at night, you're very tired, you're exhausted, but then you still have to study, or you still have to do other things, or you have to plan for the day after. So it's like like how am I gonna do this? Yeah, it just sometimes you feel lost, like disoriented, like. But then at the same time, all the support is there for you, the guidance, the practices. So you're able to do it, but you struggle. Or at least for me, it was the case. I was struggling.
Yeah, I think everything that has really brought long-term good results in our life, or at least in my life, it was never easy, right? Like the easy things we don't really remember, like things that came easy that we were gifted something, or things just came very easily to us. These are not the things that we remember. It's usually the difficult times that where we grow the most, and where we also what we remember the most. So it makes sense that the biggest transformation would happen with a lot of challenges that you had to go through, because without challenges, if it's very easy and there's nothing that you really have to overcome, then where's the growth?
Absolutely. And Sadhguru says even like, you in order to cross the limits, you need to go to the limits, right? And then you cross it. Which is exactly the same. It was exactly what the teacher training was, pushing your limits daily with the practices, with the activity, with the energy, with the mental, activity and content every day, just pushing to the limit, to the limit, to the limits. But then after the training, you look back and it's like, that was the best time of my life. It's like, it was so difficult, so demanding, but the most rewarding, because then you look back and you're a different person. You see it differently. In terms of all we were talking before, all the quality, right, that I was deciding at that time, is that they just become your quality. You're much more conscious, you're much more clear, you're much more insightful. Just phenomenal. And then you also empower with the tools, and then you can really impact other people in a way that is just phenomenal.
Yeah. You share that the inner work that you have done has helped you or has led you to have more success in the material world and also have better relationships with the people around. So can you describe how going inward, or how concrete successful actions in the external world?
Absolutely. It's, then I finished the training and then I went back to Italy, and then the level of performance, in terms of material world, the material aspect, you are completely different. You perform in a completely different way. Sometimes you have to do so many logical steps in order to make a decision. But then if you're functioning within you with no stress at all, if you're able to be completely still, and if you look at a situation, then you are much more capable of kind of decipher the situation, know exactly what the situation is, what the dynamics of it are. And so if you want to improve it or fix it, or you have to make a decision on it, then whatever you will choose based on the clarity will widely impact then the success that you have. So that's kind of the framework of like how, in terms of material well-being, right? Because then, as you were talking in the call that we had, before, it's this idea that, if you are meditating, you've taken time away from business or work or family. And if you are interested in spirituality, then you go to the temple and you're not going to the office, which it's actually not true at all. Because if you are talking about this kind of spirituality, right, what we're doing, which is enhancing yourself, which is actually the biggest empowerment that you can have, then is exactly the opposite. Because then you have much more clarity to conduct your whatever responsibility or whatever kind of activity you want to take on in life. And it was exactly the same for me. It was precisely what happened for me. The relationship with my family improved massively because I was a lot more flexible. I was a lot more stable within me. I wasn't such a case, within me. I was fine. So then you're actually able to really look at the people for what they are. You're really able to understand other people a lot more. You're a lot more understanding. You're a lot more flexible with them. And so then also the relationships improve a lot because you know how to manage them much better. You know what their needs are. You know what they're coming to you with this. You know where this is coming from. So if you have that kind of clarity, then of course, if you want the relationship to improve and to be better, because anyways, you understand that it's so important to have a very supportive atmosphere around you for whatever you want to do. So if you realize that you need to have a pleasant atmosphere, you need to make the relationship work well with people that live with you or around you or you work with. There's no other way. So whatever I did in terms of practices, in terms of all this path that Isha offers, has hugely empowered me in that sense, in terms of relation, in terms of material success, because then of course you start making the decisions that give you results. And then it's one decision, it's two decisions, and then we are normally academically taught to think linear. So 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. But it's actually not like this existentially. Existentially is it's exponential. So it's 2 times 2. times two. So if you make the right the decision that brings you result, I wouldn't say the right decision, the decision that brings you the best result, and then you make another decision that brings you the best result, and then another one, then it's kind of multiplying, and which applies it precisely for like the material aspects of life. And at least for my situation, that's very personal, I understand, because I know a lot of other teachers have different situations. To have a strong, stable, and comfortable financial situation allows me to delve even deeper into like spiritual dimensions of life, help me to have the time or the flexibility to say, okay, I want to go 2-3 months in the ashram. I can do it. I want to go into silence. I want to go to Kailash. I want to do this. I want to do that. It gives me the platform and the possibility and the opportunity to do it. So I understand that for me, it's extra relevant to be successful financially, to also be able to be more spiritual. And of course, I mean, in my case, I also have responsibility because I have two parents, each one is his own business. And I'm also taking over both businesses because anyways, my parents are getting older. And so then my own situation and their own, and the family business as well, it's also responsibility. So anyways, it would be very difficult for me to step away because it's kind of, whatever. I mean, each one has his own thoughts about this, but for me, it's a responsibility that I have. That's it. I know I have it. I'm not gonna turn back on it, walk away. So whatever I've done in these few years has completely, really prepared me for this, and has really fulfill the desire that I had at the moment. And the results are showing because it is going much better. Everything is improving every year at an exponential rate. So, I mean, and so when you say about the misunderstanding, it's such so sad that a lot of people, they don't start this path because they think it will draw them away from their friends, it will draw them away from their family, from business. It's just completely the opposite.
Yeah, you told me that you found yourself being more involved and wanting to do more activity once you were empowered by these tools. So it shows that the spiritual path actually gave you uh, like a platform, and it is about mastering your inner landscape so that the external circumstances don't dictate your state of being. And because you're functioning from a stressless state of being, where you're always flexible, like you said, where you're always functioning from a place of clarity, then it's much easier to do action without getting caught up, without getting entangled, without getting too attached to the outcome or the results. Because in the material world, in business, things don't always go well. Like there's always something which, like, some number, some mistake, something that happens. We cannot control the whole world, the economies of the world. We don't have control over everything. So, it's interesting because when I hear your story, I can hear people thinking that it's easy for you because your family has a business, so it's easy for you to say that finances, for you to take care of your finances. Like, I don't have that. I'm thinking out loud what I'm hearing. And so one thing that stands out for me though is that your willingness to be responsible for what your parents have created or what your ancestors have created, and to be willing to take that forward and to do something with it is also not an easy thing. The responsibilities that you carry with those businesses is not a small thing. It's a commitment. So I just don't want people to feel like things are so easy when you have family to take care of and to manage them. I don't want it to seem so easy because the way that you say it sounds like like blowing a bubble into the air. Like, it's not much work. But your perspective, the way that you're sharing it, just shows that you're not carrying that weight on your shoulders. You're able to be light despite of two businesses kind of being on your shoulders.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think without the support and the impact that the practices have, I don't think I would have been able to take on um, the responsibility of the business. And maybe in a way, the fact that I went to London at 18, it was also because maybe the responsibility of all this was overwhelming. And maybe I went away from it. So actually, it is like this. And maybe, okay, I started with a financial situation that was already kind of like stable. That could be the case. But I mean, whatever kind of situations I had, I can see that anyways, if you perform much better, and even if you don't have a stable financial situation, is even more relevant, right? Because if you want to build on that and fix it and change it, then even more work on yourself is required, and even more capability and even more insight and clarity is needed for you to come out of that. So it's really relevant for every kind of different background. It's
Yeah,
just really the
I've
desire.
seen teachers like that struggle. They take on a loan, or they make a big investment in building a studio, and they have this strong desire that you had when you built your first business, and with that desire they create something, but then they're not able to get the revenue, they're not able to get the income to cover all of that, and then they find themselves in that split where they kind of have to go back to some kind of job to be able to figure out this, and then that they get distracted by that job, they're not able to focus on being a teacher. So I do see that there's a lot of struggle with teachers who are not able to manage the financial part of life.
Yeah, I'm in touch with a lot of teachers, actually. A lot of teachers from all over the world. One of the beautiful things about Isha is that you really get in contact with people from all over the world, like, ourselves today, and you kind of hear different stories, like a lot of people open up, especially, and they just share their experiences. And what we were talking about before about the fact that if you're spiritual, then you should kind of turn away from material world. It's actually the opposite, even in that aspect, because I know a lot of teachers that are not able, they have a strong desire to delve into it more and to give it more time, but they're not able to because they don't have a stable enough financial situation. So the importance of being able to, make all the aspects work, it's really very important, especially because I look at it the way that the material aspect is more like the foundation, right? But then if you want to build on it, if you don't have that, but then also if you're just stuck in the foundation and you don't do anything spiritual, or you don't really work on yourself on a deeper dimension, then what are you doing? Because anyways, then the fulfillment is not going to be the same, right? So it's really crucial. And I find a lot of teachers that, they struggle with this. And because then maybe they just drop the material, or they're not able to balance it. There's just I mean, this is each really case by case. And in terms about regarding the teachers that come out of the school and then they want to teach straight away, and then they open up a business, they have a huge desire, but then maybe they don't have the insight or the clarity, like, that it can be compared to the first business that I had. So, yeah, I mean,
So
I
it
know a
sounds
lot.
like life experience is just as important as the inner experience. Like, you
It is.
cannot come out of the training and expect that now you know everything.
And you need to have insight. If you want to have business, you need to have clarity. So the fact that there are some teachers, which is amazing, okay, the desire, and they're really prepared to be teachers because the school really prepares you, but you still need to have the insight of knowing, okay, where am I based? Who are the people? What is the environment? What are the economics? What is my personal situation? To then know, or at least gauge quite precisely whether the business will be a success or not. So, but that's just a different aspect of life. I mean, the school prepares you, right, in terms of but then you still need to have the insight, because then otherwise
How
it
can
just,
people find that insight? Is there any specific way that you would say that somebody could find the insight, or is it just to talk to other teachers, see how they did it?
I mean, I would say it's got two parallel aspects there. So one thing is definitely the practices, of course. I could see with every practice that I was adding Hatha Yoga, and of course I did Samyama afterwards as well, how every time you're more and more clear, you are more and more sharp. To keep up all the practices, of course, as much as you can, that really should give you a sense of clarity inside of a certain level, right? So that's definitely the main point. The second point is the material. In the material aspects, of course, you cannot just be the desire of like, okay, Sadhguru, like prepare me now. I'm going with Sadhguru's grace. No, I mean, which so definitely an aspect. But you also need to really logically have a 360 degrees view of the business. And really trial, really see, really start small with the economics in place, that is a sustainable business. Really get a gauge of like what kind of environment you're in, because I see also with teachers, some teachers are very successful, some teachers are not. It depends on so many factors. But to have the clarity and the insight beforehand of how much, more or less, the business can be successful, even the teaching business, you can do it. You can have it. And even if you don't able to have it because you don't have some information, get the information first. And
Yeah, it sounds like it's like once you go through the training and you pick the tools up to have the clarity, you are still missing the information if you have not informed yourself before. So the information will not always magically appear, or you will not be able to download it. In that sense, sometimes you still need to go out there and learn about the business. What is a business? How to build a business? And I do see how the practice can help you learn more efficiently.
absolutely. It's also about the information. You need to have the information of knowing, where are my clients? Are they in my bay? So you need to have that information, and that information coupled with the clarity and insight that really increases manifold the chances of your business to be successful. And the gathering of information and the analyzing of the information, having a mind that is very stable and very organized, definitely makes a huge difference. And then when the practices come in, right, the what we do with the samyama as well, mentally, the shunya, on top of the, the stability that gives you the hatha yoga and everything else. I mean, what Isha offers is just so complete. And you can see the difference is huge in the way your mind works. Because when it comes to business, it's also the mind, right? How organized it is, how it works with the information that you have. And also kind of like gives you a bulb, like, okay, I'm missing this information. I need to gather that information in order to make the best decision given the situation. So it's definitely, this is just a business thing. I mean, it comes with experience. I had the experience of the business luckily. So in my case, when I went to teaching, I knew there was a strong demand. I did it very also gradually. I was able to do it from home. So I was very careful of the economics of the costs as well, because, in order to be sustainable, you always need to also look at the economics.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. Even when you were sharing about going door to door in the first business and kind of meeting people, getting out there, you learned a lot of skills before you became a teacher that were empowering you to then become a teacher who knows how to approach people, talk to people, how to gauge who is interested, where can I meet those people, how can I gather them, and then to make an investment that is also not putting you in debt, like it's so you feel stressed and you feel like, okay, I need to pay this bill at the end of the month. How am I going to do that? And then if you approach your business in that way, it's becoming more about money instead of serving. It's becoming more about earning instead of giving. And then it goes into even your practices then can become very superficial, where you just do your practices out of routine, but you're not really able to be with it. I experienced this myself, that when my environment became very stressful, or my work, or what I was dealing with, the people I was dealing with, the practices also can become very robotic. Despite of you getting physical and mental and emotional benefits, you feel like you're stuck. And that's when community and speaking to other people, opening up, sharing your struggles is very, very crucial and important. And I urge whoever is listening to this, if you are a teacher struggling with finances, or if you struggle with certain aspects of your business, I think Nicola is a great. You could actually suit that that like a mentor who or just an insights to share insights with people because of your experience. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast. Your story is a powerful reminder that spirituality isn't about running away from the world, but developing the inner strength and clarity to act more effectively. And it's been a pleasure to hear more from you. And you can tell the audience where they can find you. And
Thank you for the opportunity, Stefan, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope, yes, sharing my experience can be helpful for as many people as possible. And of course, if anyone needs to reach out, want some advice, or I'm always available. I have an Instagram page called Nicola Carrillo, which is my first name and last name, .classical yoga. That's the handle. And yeah, they can reach me through that. I think that's the easiest one. They will find.
and you
all the
offer
information.
classes right now in
I've been full-time teaching for the last 5 years, yes. In my studio in Naples. I also teach in different places. I also teach for the foundation, Rome, Milan, sometimes Spain. Yes,
they
absolutely.
can find all that on your Instagram.
They can find
classes
all
and
that on my
their
Instagram.
how
Yes.
to book.
Yes, yes.
Wonderful.
And of course, my main activity is being a teacher, which I haven't discussed too much. So that's, for me, is just such a privilege to be able to impact as many people as possible. I think the benefits that these tools can bring are just immense. And the fulfilling, so the activity, because I do so many other things, but the fulfillment that the teaching brings is just something else. So I'm very privileged to do this. And my first responsibility is towards this, really, because I feel it's so vital. So yeah, absolutely. If you want to reach out also for the learning practices or anything else, I'm always available.
Thank you everybody for tuning in, and until next time, namaskar.